Hey, good evening, everybody. And it has been long overdue, but I am joyous this evening to have our friend, Professor Hamamoto, back, who's an expert in the infiltration of intelligence into academia, not to mention exposing music industry shenanigans, and this week, the Oscars. But there's also just so much to talk about. This is going to be interesting. So, viewers, please follow Hamamoto on his YouTube channel. Let me have a look where he's at these days with his subscribers. Let's see if we can give him a little assist. All of his links are in the description box below this video. Hamamoto on YouTube is the top link in the description box. I'm going to put it in the live chat right now before I look at myself to see where he's at. Do you know where you're at, Professor?
Oh, yes.
On subscribers. What is it you're at?
I think it's about 54,000 something.
Ooh, it's
Thanks to
rising
you.
steadily, isn't it?
It's rising steadily.
54.6.
I'll be at 100 before long.
Yes, you will. And then it just goes and goes. All right, so the Oscars then. Should we start with that?
Mr. Atwood, it's wonderful being back with you today, and you're wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, we will talk about the Oscars, and if it's okay, I'd like to drill down a little bit more closely into Ariana Grande, right? Because there's a lot of chatter about her on TubeU and the socials and any manner of gossip about her life and her doings. And then further, I'd like to talk about the remake or the revisioning of the classic Wizard of Oz. It's now been transformed into a feature extravaganza musical film known as Wicked, and Ariana Grande and her co-star named Cynthia Evero, I think it's pronounced. She's Black British, by the way. And she has training at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. She has a bachelor's degree from there. So she's a real actor, unlike most of your American people who are celebrities first, actors second. And she does a very good job there. But there's a lot of problems in the Emerald City, the land of Oz. And for one thing,
does that tie into Gene Hackman, the Wizard of Oz?
No, he died last week under mysterious circumstances. I don't mean to be giggling about it, but it's
you got me giggling.
It's kind of
giggling inappropriately.
He was, connected to the French Connection, the film. He's really good. He was an actor's actor. And he was not a Hollywood type, which, by the way, we're talking about Hollywood today, but a point I think is very important to understand in the year 2025. When we say Hollywood, we're talking about a global system. It's global Hollywood. It's no longer a physical geographic location in Southern California, in Los Angeles County, much of which was burnt out recently. Yeah, there's a lot of big news here. And I think it's connected, the burning out of the people of Pacific Palisades and the relocation of the Hollywood industry to other parts of the globe. In fact, England, the UK, is one of the primary places of relocation, as well as Canada. The principal first production was at the new Sky Studios at the classic Elstree Studios outside of London. And this is I don't know if you've seen the film, but it's highly, I'd say, state-of-the-art graphics, opticals, and CG, of course. And it's being done not in quote-unquote Hollywood. There she is, Ariana Grande Butera, the star. Most of you know her face if you don't know her name. And then the other part of the so-called Hollywood film, Wicked, was filmed in Canada. Because I waited, and in preparation for today's appearance, I watched the film from beginning to end. It's over 2 hours long, by the way. It's about the gayest film you'll ever want to watch. intentionally so, because part of the agenda, and I hope you don't get dinged for this, but they're proud of it themselves because I've been watching, the gay channels on TubeU. They're very proud that their agenda is getting so much exposure, central exposure. And this film has already made big box office. It's made relatively cheaply. It's already made, I think, over $700 million in the global market. So we're talking about global Hollywood. And part of this global, in addition to production, we talked about Canada and the UK. It's an international, it's an Anglo-American production. You're also talking about the rise, and it's no news to anybody, the rise of Asia. So there is a unusually large number of significant presence of yellow people in the land of Oz, in the Emerald City. One is the head witch. She's the dean of sorcery at Wiz University. It's sort of like Hogswart University. Harry Potter has Harry Potterish overtones, sort of like also, what was it, Willy Wonka? It has these sort of fantastical images. The person who did the art direction for Wicked deserves the Academy Award. Maybe they won it. I'm not really sure because I didn't follow it that closely. But you've got Michelle Yeoh, this woman. Her name is Harible. I might be getting her name wrong, so the nitpickers can correct me down there. It doesn't invalidate what I'm saying if I get her name wrong. But the point is, it's Michelle Yeoh. We know her from Crouching Tiger, all these wuxia movies, the martial arts films, made in China, financed by Chinese money or Singaporean, Malaysian, Hong Kong, big gangster bucks, just like in the West, right? And she was the star of this, and now she is a mystical Oriental woman. Michelle Yeoh, by the way, she was also Miss Malaysia many years ago. So most people would recognize her face, and now she's moved in sort of this sort of mystical Oriental grandmotherly role as the dean of sorcery studies at Wiz University, WHIZ, which is probably, I'm guessing, ghetto talk for a wizard, because the Wizard of Oz, this is only part one, by the way. We're in for a franchise here because it's a moneymaker. So there's going to be a Wicked 2, maybe a Wicked 3 until Ariana Grande ages out. And the backstory is this woman who is Cynthia Evero, the Black British woman actress, educated at RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. The backstory is that, as you know from the classic film, she gets crushed by the house, right? And Dorothy sees this, and the ruby slippers are taken by her, and then on we go into the classic. I think 1932 is when it came out, the original. So the film is about how the Wicked Witch of the West became wicked, hence the title of the film. And it so happens that she, the witch in this one here, is a Black woman. She's Black British, as I mentioned, but they don't want to be so obvious in talking about race, so they make her being different. This is the Wicked Witch of the West. Her name is Alpha or something like, I can't remember exactly. It's probably an anagram of something. It's very Kabbalistic. There's a lot of word magic in here. And I've only seen the film once. So the backstory is that she was born green. So you have a Black British actress who was born green, and not because she's Black is she different, but because she's born green, because we're in the post-racial era. As a lot of my critics like to remind me, because they said, why are you always talking about yellow people and race? And that's the reality, even in 2025. So they make this, the producers, the writers, do this little clever twist and make her into a green. And her whole deal is that she wants, and there's a lot of agendas that are going to start playing out 20 years from now, when the little ones who are watching this film, they're entranced by it, come of age, they reach the age of reason, and all their childhood programming and, dare I say, grooming is going to click in. So I already see that in about from 10, 15 to 20 years from now, there's going to be a renewal of so-called animal rights, right? Because part of the subtext in the film Wicked is the professor who's a goat. He's a talking, speaking goat. He's four-legged, and there's other animals that teach at Wiz University. They're professors. But that's a way of slipping in Holocaust, crystal knock type subtext into Wicked. The writers are Jewish, not coincidentally. There's always some sort of Holocaust subtext, even in the most seemingly unlikely film is The Wizard of Oz. And they put it in there because the Gestapo comes into the classroom and takes Professor Goat out there. And who's the person who's Satan? These are like professors who were kicked out of the US. They went to the UK and Britain to create the nuclear bomb, right? Or people like Einstein, people of the Frankfurt School. These are all Jewish intellectuals, Theodor Adorno and Horkheimer, all those people, right? They came to Britain. Well, Freud, too, spent the last part of his life in London. So it becomes a metaphor for the Aryanization of the university.
You've got a question from
Yes,
Nicole.
already.
The Wicked Witch in the original movie is green. So why shouldn't Elphaba be green?
Well, because in the film, the remake of it, she's black. She's a black woman. Why wouldn't she be a white person? The original witch, Margaret Hamilton, was a white lady. They're not picking Cynthia Elvira on sheer talent alone. The racial dimension is crucial to the story. Just as sort of a latent anti-Semitism within the text is very important to be put in there. In addition to the fact, I mean, everybody knows about the metaphysical, the occultic dimension of this persona that we love and know through Nickelodeon, the cable channel, which also is international. We know the persona of Ariana Grande, and that's what everybody's fixating on. The fact that she goes on chat shows and says, yes, I'm a witch, right? And she's gifted. She's a transgenerational witch, by the way, in the remake Wicked. And she is gifted. She's handed down. She inherits the famed pointed hat. But she bequeaths it to her friend, Alphabet, the black woman, the green black woman, because she already has psi powers, PSI, telekinesis. And that's why she was let into the school, Wiz University, because Michelle Yeoh, the dean of occultic, supernatural, Luciferian studies, wants to cultivate her for her use to go to work for the Wizard of Oz. And it's the Wizard of Oz who's responsible for the Aryanization, the humanization of the university to get rid of the animals. And the animals are Jews. These are the expats that left Germany, starting the late, directors, people like Fritz Lang, even though his wife, Thea von Harbo herself was a Nazi, Fritz Lang, who did all these anti-fascist films. A lot of them came to the Pacific Palisades that was recently burnt out. A lot of them settled in New York. The whole psychiatric, psychoanalytic establishment came to places like New York and San Francisco. And they had to bring in people like C.G. Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, who was the grandson and son of a clergyman, Protestant, to avoid these accusations that this is a Jewish science, psychology and psychiatry. That's one of the, according to the biographies and whatnot. So there's all these different layers that are in operation when you're watching the Academy Awards. And Jeff Goldblum, not Jeff Gold, I'm sorry, I get them mixed up. Adrian Brody went up there and talked about all the transgenerational trauma that supposedly he inherited from the quote unquote Holocaust. Well, there was also a Holocaust in China. About 80 million Han Chinese were killed, murdered, or starved to death. And I mention that because the director is a Taiwanese American. His name is John Chu. He's the other. There's three significant yellows. The director, John Chu, Michelle Yeoh, we've talked about, and this guy named Bowen Yang, who's sort of the sidekick of the two witches. And of course, he's flaming gay. And in the U.S., he's part of the ensemble of Saturday Night Live. And in Hollywood, in global Hollywood, and this is true also for overseas consumption, any Asian man who pretends to have any sort of supernatural or mortal power is always a flaming homosexual. It's equivalent to the fact that the black male is made to wear a dress and cross-dress by the producers before they're allowed to advance. So this is the yellow man's, and Chu is complicit of this. He's from Palo Alto, California. And for those of you who don't know about that, that's the heart of Silicon Valley. You dig? So he's a crazy rich Asian, which, by the way, he directed. That made big box office. I'm sure that's why they picked him as a second or third choice to direct Wicked, because they know he could do the job. But he's one of them crazy rich Asians, like those people who are writing books like that, while I am a ghetto Asian. There's a big difference. So please don't confuse me for being one of them crazy rich Asians, because there's gonna be a glut of them. I'm more interested in stories of the ghetto people like me, the ones who are working in Chinatown in anonymity, not the ones who are from Silicon Valley, who have tons of money, who only a generation ago could not even live there. So there's something that Samuel L. Jackson and I have in common. You know the actor Samuel L. Jackson? There's something that we have. We both grew up in segregation. We were not allowed to live in the Palo Alto as John Chu and the other crazy rich Asians. So I'm telling you this as best as I can, because I know a lot of people say, well, the original witch was green, so why are you making a big issue out of it? I'm telling you this is because then we can forestall this whole propaganda assault that's coming down the path. You're going to get nothing but crazy rich transnationals, yellow people in quote unquote Hollywood, which includes the UK, and also because they also want to make sure that China doesn't get a foothold in financing and producing their own films. Right? This is a power play. It's a power politics in the guise of a fantasy tale. That's how you have to look at all of this product that's coming down the chute. And people like John M. Chu is a tool of it. Now, speaking of homosexuality, I always expected I assumed he was gay, because Crazy Rich Asians has another guy as a lead actor, and he's flaming queer too. Because that's what Hollywood wants for the yellow man, just like he wants the black man to wear a dress and to stage mandingo parties for themselves, right? So they can get down with the black bucks, just like on the old South Plantation. It's mandingo time. Well, the same process was going on in China, in Japan, in South Korea, in the Philippines, in Thailand, where they even tried out the gender-bending pharmaceuticals, Bayer, Monsanto. They tried them out on a Thai man, and now there's a whole group of people called Katai. who are transsexuals, and there's a whole sex tourist trade that's built upon it. So all of a sudden we see this little fantasy that little 6-year-olds going, oh, I want to be a witchy princess when I grow up and have a magic wand and have psi powers just like my green black witch and Ariana Grande. So 20 years from now, they're going to be in position to ride herd on you and me. Thank goodness I'll be dead by then, but you're going to have to live under this occultic matriarchy. It's hilarious, but it's already happened. In the U.S., we've got some militant transvestites which are committing acts of terrorism on Tesla dealerships. They're striking out against Elon Musk. One of the writers for the Alex Jones show was murdered in his house in Austin just a couple days ago. We're talking about dying. Pardon me?
Before we move on to that,
yes.
Can I just ask you?
Yes.
What is the deal with this Ariana lady? She looks a few Fruit Loops short of becoming a glazed over Stepford wife. What's going on with her?
Well, that's a good analogy, and that was written by Ira Levin, by the way, who wrote Rosemary's Baby. Ira Levin was written into it. Well, you know who she bears a resemblance to? The Canadian woman, the songbird, Celine Dion. She's got the same facial affect of someone who's an adrenochrome consumer.
Has she been MK Ultra'd?
Yeah, adrenochrome. She's got the adrenochrome facial aspect.
Let's stay away from that word.
Okay, sorry.
I had a friend who lost his entire channel over it. But
please jump in if I go overboard.
Do you know her backstory then?
Yeah, she's a child star, and I did want to talk about Nickelodeon, even though we're talking about Hollywood and the Oscars and all that. But Nickelodeon is a feeder stream to what we call global Hollywood, and it's a cable channel. And there is British Nickelodeon. I checked it out before coming on here. They have them in Asia. They're in northern Mexico. They're a global franchise. And guess who their audience is? Chillins. Boogie chillins. Children. I'm from the hood, remember? So I say chillin'. And she was a child star. She was a voodoo child. Remember the Jimi Hendrix song, Voodoo Child?
Yeah. She's
a voodoo child.
So was she given up by her parents for fame?
Yes. How did you guess? It's a sacrifice. By the way, people in academia give up their children for advancement. They allow them to go into these MK Ultra. I had this one colleague whose daughter became a boy and whose son became a girl. Is that coincidental? No, I think he donated, just like Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. He went to Harvard. It's in a book called Harvard and the Unabomber, Alston Chase. And he was in this program, longitudinal study by a guy named Charles Murray that came right out of the U.S. intelligence. And they were able to craft these people that we sort of called Manchurian candidates. And that whole trope has been allegorized into triviality. That's the risk that we run here. We say, oh, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Manchurian candidate. We're using all these tropes, these memes, these allegories. They've lost their radical meaning. So I encourage everybody to go back to the original Manchurian candidate directed by the great John Frankenheimer, who, by the way, the person who owned the rights to Manchurian candidate was none other than Frank Sinatra, who's in the film. And the great British actor Lawrence Harvey's in there. An incredible. I just saw it again recently because I needed to reacquaint myself to this process that's still very much in play in the 21st century, in 2025. Because we run the risk here, think, oh, we know that already. We heard Ian Carroll on Joe Rogan talking about this, that, and the other. some guy who's been studying for 2 years and, oh yeah, I know everything about it now. I know about the New World Order. I know about MK Ultra. I know about all this. So it's sort of a premature understanding that is working for the other side, right? And this film, the filmmakers, the film writers understand that we have this newly awakened audience. So they're tackling this classic material, The Wizard of Oz, which was written by L. Frank Baum, an American. He wrote a series of 14 books with the Wizard of Oz theme. They're putting a new spin on it for the next generation. So the children of today on the process of being weaponized for rule tomorrow. The ones we see, the transgender terrorists of today, those people were in formation 20 years ago. The ones that are burning, firebombing the Tesla automobiles and are targeting certain people for death here in America. I don't know if it's happening in Britain yet, but it's happening. It's being suppressed by both mainstream news and independent news. Those people were groomed 20 years ago, a la Manchurian, quote unquote, candidate. It's a delayed reaction.
You got a question?
And they're using, pardon me?
You got a question from RS.
Yes.
Professor, do you believe social status makes them sell their offspring?
If you mean that it's an attempt to advance themselves within the system, then yes, that's what I mean. If they're already there, they have no need. But it's usually the people who are the aspiring middle-class professionals that will do that. And it's biblical. Any number, not just biblical, it's archetypal. People have sold their own flesh and blood in order to advance themselves in society. So it's not unique to us. It's we have to be on guard of this because it seems to be a cultural universe, trans-historical cultural universal.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, we have people who abort creatures, human beings, with the idea that, oh, it's going to hurt my career. It's going to set me back over at BlackRock, where I work as an accountant, right? Or I'm going to, I'm going through tenure, so I can't afford to have a baby right now, so I'll just get rid of it. So there's all this calculus, and it's been normalized over the past few decades that human life can be treated in such a fashion. And it can be under the guise of so-called kid power. I mean, in preparation for this talk, I was looking in academic papers. All of them say that Nickelodeon Network, people like Ariana Grande, represent children's culture. There is no children's culture. There's just culture. There is no woman's culture. There's no man's culture. There's just culture. This is an attempt to segment the audience and put them into a tube. That's why it's called Tube View. To silo people and to cultivate them and, dare I say, groom them along certain lines for certain specific needs to serve the system. And that's what Wicked is doing. I mean, even the original Wizard of Oz had a political subtext. L. Frank Baum was someone who wanted to promote precious metals, silver, gold, not paper dollars, which eventually were done away with, the Bretton Woods Agreement, right? And it's coded in the form of a child's tale, but it's a very adult story. So for those parents out there and grandparents, you want to be there sitting down when you're watching Wicked or watching any Nickelodeon program at all. There's a reason why they're called programs, right? You want to be there to see what's being put in their minds under your nose. One of the main characters is a guy named SpongeBob. He's a grotesquerie. He's not a human. He's not an object. He's a sponge. He's a transgenic, mutagenic creature. And this is a network that's chock full of supposed third wave feminists. All the executives, the presidents, they are women's, or if you like women. But remember, I'm from the ghetto, so I say women's. So all this, and remember, that's where Ariana Grande comes from. She comes from straight out of the poop chute of Nickelodeon. Who, this is not me talking. This is, you can find it on TubeView. They have all these creepy directors and producers. So I'm not guilty of libel here. This is printed. This is known. This guy has been investigated and found culpable for his actions. Guys like Dan Schneider, and when another showrunner on Nickelodeon and CW, it's another cable channel, Joss Whedon, who, by the way, is a third-generation television writer. His grandfather was writing, and so happens I wrote a book on situation comedies, because that was our grooming tool when we were growing up in the golden age of American television. This is about sitcoms, and as I told you, a lot of it was stolen from British television. We talked about that previously. Nervous laughter. So this is a ongoing process, but we're so close to it now, and we're enthralled by the occult power of people like Ariana Grande, who has a 4-octave range, singing range. She's like a Mariah Carey level. My dog whistle singing. Incredible singer, but she's completely steeped in this world of Nickelodeon. Continue with the questions, please. Or
right. So
I'm
gonna put you on the spot now.
Okay, please.
I'm going to show you a video of Jim Carrey, and I'm going to pause it at pertinent points and get your thoughts on the deeper meanings, your interpretation of the deeper meanings of what he's saying. So, are you ready for this? Are you?
I am ready. Nobody can beat me, even ChatGPT or Grok.
Right, here we go. Have I got it on the? Is it on the screen? Can you see it?
Not yet.
Oh, let me see what I've done. 1 second. There it is. That's why. Okay. Wondered where it had gone. Let me make it big. There we go. And play. Here we go.
Say, Jim Carrey. Yes.
What?
I've covered a lot of fashion weeks. This is the first time I've run into Jim Carrey. Wait, tell me, is it true you're wandering the streets? You need a date to the party? What's up?
No. I'm doing just fine. I just, there's no meaning to any of this. So I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to and join, and here I am.
What do you think of that? There's no meaning to any of this.
I've seen this one before, and you know what? He's dead serious. Jim Carrey is the personification of the real meaning of woke, not this fake USAID funded wokeness, this BLM La Raza woke, but he's really woke, as with the original, as we use the term 30, 40 years ago. That's Jim Carrey. I will watch any movie that he puts out there. And I think what happened is that he was in the Truman Show, and he realized, damn, this is what it's all about. And he changed completely after that movie. Did you ever see Truman Show?
With the fake TV thing, yes.
Yes, it's sort of like, reality show, but it's a closed universe, sort of like Nickelodeon, sort of like Wicked. It's quote unquote Hollywood. And I think he's clowning this woman. I mean, he's not trying to embarrass her. He knows that she's just sort of a drone, right, holding a microphone. Some wannabe who,
semi-Stepford Ariana glazed eye look, doesn't she? Like Kanye's Bianca.
She does, yeah. I don't know what sort of what sort of medication you're on, but he's having a good laugh at her expense.
Oh, let's keep going.
They're
I
celebrating.
mean, you got to admit it's completely meaningless.
Well, they say they're celebrating icons inside.
Celebrating
Do you believe
icons,
in
boy,
icons?
that is just the absolute lowest aiming, possibility that we could come up with. It's like icons. Do you believe in icons? I don't believe in personalities. I don't believe that you exist, but there is a wonderful fragrance in the air.
Do you believe in icons, Professor?
Yes, I do. And I'm an iconoclast. I smash icons for a living. So he's clowning her. He smells his fragrance and his fertilizer. It's BS. You notice he doesn't have any arm candy with him. There's no semi-naked women that he's parading around because he's been through that already. Wasn't he dating, I don't know, some of these starlets in the past, not too long ago, 10, 15 years ago? He was married to some of the top level beauties of the day. And I think he finally realized that, hey, man, I was seduced. I've been played. So what I would suggest is for Jim Carrey to contact me. I'll write him a movie. He should produce it, direct it, star in it, and I'll hook him up with all the Asian money that's being invested in America from China and from Japan. And I'll make sure that there'll be straight yellow men in there, not flaming gays. Or no witches either. No greens. There might be some black and some browns, definitely white people, but no greens. Jim Carrey, let's do business. Let's talk. Randy Quaid, the invitation's open for you too. I want to see Randy Quaid on the screen again. I want to see him make a major movie. Because you know what? He's been proven right with his whole concept of star whackers. I knew he was right when he first came out, him and his wife, Edie, I believe her name is. And I've seen their movie, their documentary. I said, he nailed it. I understand why he's on the run. And Jim Carrey is in that category. And you know what? They're going to be joined with increasing intensity by other so-called icons. So it's ending. This is why a lot of production is being offshored from Pacific Palisades, which is burnt to the ground, being moved to Canada, to Quebec, to move in the other Five Eyes countries. Also, it's because of trade deals and embargoes. And if Trump wants to help the American economy and help the Directors Guild of America and the Writers Guild East-West, these are American trade guilds for screenwriters, producers, directors, then I say start making filmmaking a priority in America. And same with Britain. Britain came out of the gate early on with their own national cinema. I don't want to see British films about American topics. I want to see what life is like in contemporary United Kingdom, right? I want to see a movie about Chinatown in Liverpool. You're acquainted with it, are you not?
I am. It's all grooming gangs and drug gangs in the inner cities now. Here, let me continue with Jim before we derail.
Oh, please.
Let's keep going.
You don't believe certain icons have the power to make change, to think differently, to be bold, to inspire others? Artistry, you're one of them.
On the good foot. Ha! Yeah. You shut it down now. Yeah, no, I don't believe in icons. I don't believe in personalities. I believe that peace lies beyond personality, beyond invention and disguise, beyond the red S that you wear on your chest that makes bullets bounce off. I believe that it's deeper than that. I believe.
What did he say? Peace lies beyond personality. What does he mean by that?
Well, I think he's having some fun. He's trying to be profound like a lot of these dimly educated Hollywood types, right? They read a couple science fiction novels and they watch other movies. That's about the level of literacy. And they go up there and start spouting nonsense like Sean Penn. I mean, he went over to talk to Vladimir Zelensky and presented Sean Penn his Oscar to him, and
Was it
as a form of homage.
US,
huh?
Was it US? Did the USAID pay him to go out there with Angelina Jolie?
That or NATO? They're probably all the same. NATO and the United Nations, which is crazy because his father was a really Arthur Penn was he was an excellent director. This is before directors were completely controlled from the University of Southern California Cinema School, NYU Cinema School, UCLA Cinema School. Before the academic world start enforcing a certain ideological orthodoxy on creators. Originally, this talent came out of the rough and tumble Lower East Side. They were ghetto. They were the sons of Jewish immigrants or immigrants themselves from other countries. And they had a hard scrabble existence and understanding of the world. The ones we're seeing now are a bunch of crazy rich people like John Chu and Kevin, whatever his name is, who wrote Crazy Rich Asian. His grandfather was the head of the Overseas Chinese Bank. He comes from a banking family. No wonder he's going to get a publishing contract. No ghetto Asian like me is going to get nothing. So I'm with Jim Carrey all the way. I am with Kanye West. I stand with him.
Let's finish, Jim. 1 second.
I stand with 50 Cent, too.
Hold on.
We were a field of energy dancing for itself. And I don't care.
But Jim, you got really dressed up for the occasion. You look good.
No, I didn't.
Was that an
get dressed
accident?
up. I didn't get dressed up.
Who did?
There is no me.
There's no you.
No.
We're not here. This is a dream.
There's just things happening. And there are clusters of tetrahedrons moving around together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's happening in our world right now? Because there is a lot of news that actually is relevant that's not that
Here's
uplifting.
the thing. It's not our world.
None
That's
of
the
this is
key.
real?
Nope.
So you're just passing
We don't
through.
matter. We don't matter.
Oh, wow.
There's the good news.
Okay.
It's no wonder they put that on. It's E! News. It's about as lowbrow as you can get. TMZ, all that stuff. And believe me, I watch it. I've seen that interview. I'm not above it. Mr. Atwood, I am of the people. I'm into the culture. The difference is that I don't embrace the icon. I throw it down on the ground and stomp on it. And in place, I put my culture out there, my word, my intelligence, my creativity. And I encourage everybody who's watching this, especially the young people, to follow that same pattern. You can watch Wicked to get some ideas and go against it, but don't make that. Don't absorb it in the world. You're absorbing the energy of an Ariana Grande. You know, I'm just picking her name out because she's the star, ostensibly, Wicked. But there's you can say Lady Goo, you can say Taylor Swift. There's a whole bunch of them, and there's more in the pipeline. It's an endless supply.
Let's do a quick poll, Professor.
Supply chain.
I'm going to do a quick poll. Put a 1 in the chat if you've already subscribed to the Professor. Put a 2 in the chat if you have not, but you are about to. And the link is in the live chat, and it's also in the description box. Professor Hamamoto is marching to 100,000 subs. Let's accelerate that, please. Lots of ones coming in. And my next question is then, because we've had this deluge of executive orders, and there's all kinds of changes afoot. Does this mean that the infiltration of intelligence into academia, how has Trump becoming president impacted that? I mean, is a lot of that financed by bureaucracies that he's shutting down, for example?
Absolutely. I'm getting all kinds of correspondence, internal correspondence meant for only academic types. They're panicking. They're panicking because the money supply is drying up. All this largesse that they're used to over the past several decades coming through all these dark and gray money sources, and USAID is only one of them. That's drying up, and that's a good thing, because only the good research is going to be allowed to flourish. About 80% of even so-called hard science, I'll be more generous, maybe 70%. 70% of so-called hard science is fraudulent, part of it. There's a site called Retraction Watch that's run by a medical doctor turned journalist. He's in residence at New York University, and his whole job and his staff, his interns, mostly young people, are looking at research and science research, hard research, so-called, and trying to look at the methodology. And he's finding that the vast majority of it is bogus or incorrect, not accidentally, but willfully. And add to that, now we have ChatGPT and Grok AI. And on record, just recently, and again, it happens to be a yellow man, he's a PhD type researcher, he got busted for crafting a research paper based on AI. And Mr. Atwood, people like you and me are going to have a limited existence, because we're already seeing on YouTube these news readers, these presenters who I can tell are getting their content, quote unquote, from ChatGPT. They're repeating other people's work on YouTube, which originates on Grok. It's already been being done on print media. That's why I think your show is so important, because we're doing this in real time. You are throwing me wild cards and having me react on the spot extemporaneously. You're laying down a chord pattern and asking me to improvise over it.